So I just started recording. So let me extend a very warm welcome to all our attendees on this Sunday afternoon, which is kind of cold and wet right here in Silicon Valley where I am. And Monica, how's the weather where you are?
It's a little cold and rainy. I'm in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C., so a little cold and rainy.
So, if we did a poll and asked everyone on this webinar about where they would rather be, here or in sunny Hawaii, that would be an interesting poll. Right. So we're going to get started. My name is Vinny Gupta, and I am co-founder and CEO of UC Easy. We are the company that sponsored the webinar today. Our speaker for today is Dr. Monica Randall. You should be able to see her video, and in a few minutes, she will introduce herself. But before we do that, I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to UC Easy and who we are and how we can help. There are a few of UC Easy current customers on this webinar today, so you've heard this pitch before. For the other ones, just very high level, UC Easy stands for University and College Admissions Made Easy. It has nothing to do with University of California. We do support them, but this is not University of California Made Easy. Now, our mission is specifically to help first-generation immigrant families, of which there is a very large number right here in California. And we want to help them with college admissions. And why? Because both me and my co-founder, the two of us started this company several years back. We are both first-generation immigrants ourselves. And we went through this rather cumbersome and stressful college admissions process for our children. And just to make sure that no one has to go through that experience again, we started UC Easy. We are a social business. What that means is that while we are a business, we want to give back to the community as well. So we have several solutions that are completely free for families that are financially not as privileged as I am, and hopefully you are. So quickly talking about our solutions. On our site, uceasy.com, you can actually see a section called Toolbox, where we have several completely free applications, including a tool which based upon your family situation, allows you to see the net cost of attending University of California or California State University. So again, that section is called Toolbox from our site. The second is that this webinar, as you know, is free. We do these webinars maybe 2 to 4 times a month. We also do lots of seminars at community centers like libraries or places of worship like Indian temples or Jewish temples, etc., where people like Monica Randall would go in and talk about different topics. And the webinars like today's, the recordings are actually available on our site. And feel free to use them. And more importantly, feel free to share those with your friends and family that may not be as financially privileged as you are, meaning that they don't really have any other college admissions help anywhere. Lastly, this is the business part of what we do, is that for families that still need help, even after these free solutions, and we understand not everyone can afford it, we can help you with private college admissions coaching, including financial aid. That's our topic for today. So experts like Dr. Monica Randall, and we have 20 such experts on our team, they can actually handhold you with the entire spectrum of college admissions. So if you're a family, a younger family, you can start with us from 8th grade onwards. If you are a current senior who just finished college applications, we can help you with other things like waitlist strategy, choosing between offers, etc. So the way to learn about our one-on-one counseling programs is by going to our site, going to UC, our site in the union section, or you can go to union.uceasy.com, and we'll share that towards the end of this webinar today. So with that, let me welcome Dr. Monica Randall. One last housekeeping thing, that feel free to fire in your questions. Use the Q&A box on your menu or on your toolbar. And what will happen is that I will try to answer your questions by typing. And then when Monica is done with her formal presentation, then she will take your questions live through audio. With that, Monica, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and call up the rest of everything. So bear with me for a moment. All right. Let me just go through these real quick. All right. Thank you, Vinny. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. As Vinny stated, I am located right outside of Washington, D.C. My name is Dr. Monica Randall. And I just wanted to start off by just giving you a little bit of information about my background and tell you a little bit more about myself. For a number of years, I sat on what I like to call the other side of the desk, where I was the vice president for enrollment management at a university here in the Washington, D.C. area. And that meant that I took care of admissions and financial aid for students, as well as student support services. So I found myself having a lot of families coming to my office, especially related to financial aid issues, admissions issues. I had the opportunity to decide whether or not to admit students or to deny students, me and my staff. So I found a lot of students coming to my office. So that's what I did at a university. I also served as a director of finance policy for the state of Maryland. So during my tenure there, I had a chance to work with the governor's office on developing need-based and some merit-based financial aid programs for the state of Maryland. And some of those programs do continue today as well. So I'm coming at it from a professional aspect, and from a personal standpoint. When I was a student, as an undergraduate student as well as a graduate student, I was a Pell Grant recipient. So I received funds when I was an undergraduate, need-based financial aid. And as a graduate student, I took advantage of the loan programs that were available. So I'm also coming at it from someone who also used many of the programs that I'm going to talk about today. Okay? Additional background information, I'm also a parent. I have a daughter who is 12, so I'm the parent of a tween, and she keeps me very busy. One thing that I do as a consultant is I go out and I tour colleges, and I tend to take her with me a lot of times. It's really fun when we do tour colleges. I have her be my social media director. So she will take pictures of schools and help me post, because she does a much better job than I do. So when I'm not spending time working with students, I'm spending time with my daughter. My daughter is also a competitive swimmer, and I am a certified USA swimming official. So when I'm not spending time with families, you'll usually find me on the pool deck as well. So a little bit about my philosophy on how I work with families, and my general philosophy of helping families, helping students match with colleges and universities. So I take more of a holistic perspective in working with families, meaning that I like to work with families to find the best fit or the best match college for your teen. What that means is we're looking at it from a much more holistic perspective. So not only is it going to be a good fit for you, your son or daughter academically, but also making sure that it's a good social fit, that it's going to be a good place for them to grow and thrive as they move into their young adult years. And also looking at it from personal aspects. So any other personal aspects, if your son or daughter might have a learning difference or any other special differences, we take those into consideration as well. And then of course, from a holistic standpoint, looking at matching your son or daughter with the best from a financial standpoint as well, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I mean by that as well. Okay? So what you're going to learn today, what I'm going to cover over the next 20 minutes or so is give you 6 essential financial aid and scholarship tips. And these are tips that I think every family should know. Okay? These tips are designed to kind of help you on your way. If you're just starting the journey, if your son or daughter is a sophomore or junior in high school and you're just beginning that journey, or these are some tips if you're a senior, if you have seniors, that'll help them as well. Okay, because I firmly believe, of course, that knowledge is power. All right. One thing that I ask that you keep in mind that my tips are very general and very broad. Okay, so we're looking at it from a very general and very broad perspective. And I'll talk to you towards the end about how, if you need personalized assistance, how we might be of help for you there. All right. So the first tip that I have is to build your college list with affordability in mind. All right. So build your college list with affordability in mind. The idea is to consider what you can afford, what you and your teen and your family can afford. So obviously it's up to you to kind of figure that out, but here's some tips on how to take this into consideration and affordability. The first thing that you should do as you're building your college list with affordability in mind is to make sure that you understand college cost. And I say that because a lot of folks, if you listen to the news, you'll hear a lot of talk about tuition. And yes, tuition obviously is part of college cost. But in addition to that, you have to take into consideration not only tuition, but fees. There are also often fees associated with tuition, room and board. You know, your son or daughter is going to live on campus and have a meal plan, et cetera. So taking those to consideration. Books and supplies, that's all part of college cost. Anything personal, transportation, any other miscellaneous expenses. So really looking at total college cost from a very broad perspective and taking into consideration all of these factors. All right. I also like to say that as part of looking at affordability for colleges, think about it in terms of it as you build your college list. Think about it in terms of finding what I call financial aid safety schools. Okay. When we build college lists, we often think about schools that are your fit, you think about your reach schools, you think about your safety schools. From an affordable standpoint, there are such things as financial aid safety schools. And I define that as a college where your student could afford to enroll if he or she does not receive any financial aid. Okay, so that's a financial aid safety school. And take that in consideration as you are building your college list. All right. So the second tip is to know the difference between merit-based and need-based financial aid. All right. So here's what I mean by that. So there are 2 different really forms of aid. There's merit. Okay, and merit is usually awarded from, for those from an academic perspective. So students who have high GPAs, high test scores, it might be given because of they have an ability, like they're an athlete, or they have an ability in terms of music or those kind of things. Those are merit-based aid. Need-based is based on, well, a student's financial need. So 2 different types, merit and need. And here's some examples of that for you. From a merit-based perspective, examples of that would be institutional scholarships. These are scholarships or aid that comes from a college or university. It could be private scholarships, could be based on merit. Usually these are external scholarships that students apply for based on certain criteria, or state scholarships as well, could be based on merit. Right? From a need-based perspective, you're looking at grants, or loans could also be based on need. Need-based is usually from the federal perspective. The Pell Grant is a need-based financial aid loan, as an example. Just a little bit on these are 2 different types, but there are multiple sources of financial aid. As I said, there are state sources or private sources, as well as the federal sources as well. Okay. There are two forms that drive this whole process of merit and need-based financial aid. One form is the FAFSA. I'm sure many of you have heard of the FAFSA. You can find it here at fasfa.ed.gov. Okay, the FAFSA is due every year. October 1st is when it becomes available, and so most families will fill that out around October 1st or so. And it's a good time of year to figure it out. So if you have a high school junior right now, that means come October 1st, 2017, that's when you would fill out the FAFSA for who will then be a high school senior, fill out the FAFSA for them for the following year for school. Okay, so October 1st is that time period. Usually takes about anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes to fill it out. There are all kinds of help online here to assist you in filling that out. So it's really about, I guess, about a 45-minute process to do that. The other form that drives this whole process is something called the CSS profile. That profile, let me go back for a minute. The FAFSA, to file the FAFSA, it is free to file. So once you fill out the form, you just hit submit, and it goes to the federal government. The CSS profile, on the other hand, there's a fee for that. The CSS profile is a little more in-depth, and about 300 or so schools, most of them highly selective, require the profile. And like I said, it's a little more in-depth in terms of the type of questions that they ask about your finances, your family finances. So what is it that they're looking for, and why do you fill out these forms? And here's why. When you're filling out the FAFSA, the one thing that you're going to be looking for and what they're going to come up with, and as well as, let me get a pointer here, as well as the CSS profile, they may do something a little different. The whole thing is designed to come up with a number, and the number is called the expected family contribution. Okay, and that's what I'll refer to all the time as the EFC, expected family contribution. Now, that means that it is the minimum amount a family is expected to contribute to a college, to their college finances, the EFC. Okay, when I asked you at the beginning, or told you at the beginning, when you're looking at building an affordable college list, making sure you look at the total cost of attendance, that's very key, because what schools will do is they'll take their total cost of attendance, their tuition fees, room and board, books, supplies, all that kind of things. They'll subtract the EFC that you get from the FAFSA, and they'll come up with something called financial need. Okay, so that's what they're doing as they're looking at the amount of financial need that you could be eligible for. Now, next, there is a need-based calculation. So the bottom line is not all schools will meet 100% of need. Some schools will meet, say, 100%. Most of the highly selective schools will meet 100% of need. Other schools will range from, 25% or, all the way up to 100% of need. But what schools will do is take that financial need that you have, and they'll say, well, we're going to meet 100%. If they do, and that's how much aid that they would award. Okay, so for example, say hypothetically a school cost, the total cost is $25,000, and your expected family contribution is $5,000, and you have a financial need of $20,000. A school many of the highly selective schools will say, well, we will meet 100% of that $20,000, and they will package you based on that. You need $20,000 to attend the school. Okay, so keep in mind, of course, that need will be specific to each college. As I said before, some colleges will meet 100%, others don't. It will vary. All right. Keep in mind, this other aspect is that I talked about the fact that not all colleges offer merit-based aid. Merit-based aid is usually awarded by schools to attract students. And what I mean by that, and I think it sometimes is shocks people. Some colleges, like Ivy League colleges, they only award on need-based. They don't use merit-based as a method to attract people, to attract students, because they don't have to. So they do award based on financial need, and will give funding based on financial aid and need. But keep in mind that not all colleges will offer merit-based need to students. Also, when you're looking at merit aid or need-based financial aid, so if you're looking at scholarships or grants, keep in mind those are things I like to refer to as gift aid. It's aid that does not have to be paid back. All right, so scholarships or grants it's aid that doesn't have to be paid back, unlike loans. All right. Another area to look at are private scholarships. Private scholarships are scholarships that you can get that are outside of the college or university. They can be from community groups, or some local businesses may provide private scholarships, and I'll point you to some resources here in a minute in terms of where you go to look for private scholarships. I recommend the first stop is to talk to your high school counselors. They may have a list of private scholarships that are in your area. You could look at other resources on the web, which I'll give you in a moment as well. And private scholarships, some of them are competitive. They can range from $500 on up to, you know, several $1,000s. They do require applications outside of the college application. You apply to a scholarship, and sometimes they do require essays in terms of applying for scholarships and writing essays to get awarded for those scholarships. All right. The third tip is to know the difference between net price and sticker price. All right. And this is what we mean by that. The sticker price is the total cost, and I mentioned that before. So, for example, here we have Swarthmore College, and the total cost estimate here is $64,000, a little more than $64,000. That is the sticker price. Okay, it's the cost of attending for 1 year for this particular school. All right. So that's the sticker price. The net price, I will show you, is the total cost of attendance minus what I said before was gift aid. So minus anything that doesn't have to be paid back. So minus scholarships, minus grant money, and that kind of thing. That would be the net price. And it's just really important for you to understand and know what the net price is, because that'll give you some idea of how much it truly will cost you to attend that school. And the way to find out about net price, there are two ways. You can look, every college or university now is required to have a net price calculator. All right, so that's a resource to go to. And I recommend that you do that. Go in and plug in information about your family situation, etc., and it'll give you some idea as to how much the net price would be for your particular situation. Okay, so every school requires a net price calculator on their website now. It's a requirement. The fourth recommendation that I have, and I think this is something that it shocks a lot of people, and that is, don't forget to think about the second, third, and fourth year, and sometimes fifth year, okay? Because, teens aren't going to school just for 1 year. You have to look at it from a broad perspective and consider, yes, you have year one of cost, and year two of cost, 3, 4, and sometimes the fifth year as well. And let me give you an example of that here. So here is an example of, it's just an analysis for a particular family, and you can see here, let me get this pointer up here. You can see here that it lays out 4 years for you. Okay, it lays out 4 years of how much it will cost over a 4-year period, what you could expect to cost, the total cost of attendance here for 4 years, and how much need a family will have over a 4-year period, as well as what the the amount out of pocket a family could be expected, as well as how much out of pocket with student loans. And I say to keep that in mind because of the fact that, you know, your financial situations always change over a year. You might have in year one, you might have, for example, I had a family in year one, there was only one student who was in college, but in the second year, another one of the siblings joined, so you had two students, so that had an impact on their finances. And then in the fourth year, they ended up having another child, so they had three children in college at the same time. And being able to lay that out and kind of look at what your situation will be over a 4-year period will give you some idea of not only how much your expected family contribution could be over those 4 years, but also the amount of loans and how you help your son or daughter think about how they will manage as they move through college and beyond. Okay, so remember, looking at it from a 2, 3, 4, and sometimes 5th year perspective would also give you a good handle on what's happening from a financial aid's perspective. Okay. The 5th tip that I have is that it's really important to set realistic family expectations. Let me explain what I mean by that. Okay. Sitting down and talking to your teen about how much he or she will contribute. Okay. Will they contribute by taking on a part-time job during college, or will they contribute just by summer employment? Will they work now if you have a high school junior and it's the time to start working on scholarships, to think about private scholarships? Are they going to start earning private scholarships and working on helping contributing that way? Or will they take out student loans, and how much to take out? How much to balance in terms of looking at their college major or their career goals, how much loans they could handle when they are out in the real world and have to pay them back. So the other thing too is setting a realistic expectation in terms of how much you as parents will contribute as well. Okay, so setting up those realistic expectations by having that conversation about the cost and how you're going to come up with meeting the cost of attending higher education. And the 6th and final tip is keep in mind that financial aid is only one method of minimizing any cost that are there. Okay, one method. And what I mean by that is we talked a little bit about merit aid. And the way that students can earn merit aid is to earn high grades in high school and also do well on their SAT or ACT. So preparing for those tests will help to maximize your chance of getting merit aid. Another way to do this is to take AP classes and score well on those tests. Many schools will award credit based on the score that you get. Sometimes schools will award it if you earn a 3, but usually it's a 4 or 5 that you'll have to earn on those tests. But that'll save in the long run because that means less classes that you'll have to take. And if you can, minimize the number of classes that you take in college, that could help save as well. I would make sure that you research any potential major. And I say that because, I mentioned before that sometimes students have to stay in school for 5 years. And usually that case is if a student goes into a school and they decide to change a major, that can impact the length of time that they have to stay until they graduate, which of course will add to the cost of attending. So researching those potential majors up front and really making sure that truly is the major and thinking about it before you have to change a major in college so that it won't add an extra year of college cost. Also researching colleges, changing colleges. So if you go to a school and it's not quite the right fit and you decide to change and transfer to another school, that could add an additional year to your education. And of course, that'll add an additional year to your cost as well. Okay, so, and then the other tip in terms of minimizing college cost is to maximize your merit aid. So the way to do that is to really know your own profile, your teen's profile, and apply to schools where that profile will be very competitive, right? So that you can maximize the amount of financial aid that you could potentially get from a college or university, right? Here are a couple of resources for you in terms of looking at scholarships. All right. Scholly.org is like one of my favorite resources, and it's an app that you can put on your phone, as well as you can log into online and set up an account, and you can decide on different parameters of what you're looking for and give them your own profile, and it will send you like examples. It'll send you scholarships and say, hey, this scholarship might be good for you, and go ahead and you can go ahead and fill it out. So that's one of my favorite resources. It's scholly.org. The other one is scholarsnap.org. You can go online there. There are a few. It's just a way of, it's kind of like the Common Application, where you can put in all of your scholarship information, all of your profile information, and then once a scholarship becomes available, you can apply really quickly without having to continuously put in your profile information. So those are two resources that I highly recommend that you check out. That's scholly.org and scholarsnap.org. Okay. So now we're at Q&A.
All right. So Monica, that was awesome. And first of all, thank you so much for all that valuable information. I was just texting to the attendees that both my children are done with college, done in the sense one has graduated, the second is already there. I just wish that as a first-generation immigrant, I had all of this information in the planning process. So thank you so much for that. Before you get on to the questions asked by the attendees, I do have a couple of questions just to guide the conversation and to warm up our audience for more stimulating questions. In addition to what they have sent in. So the first is that not every family is affluent. We live in Silicon Valley, which obviously has a income level which is disproportionately higher as compared to the rest of the country. Should a child from a family, should they constrain their dreams about top-end colleges or high-end colleges based upon the family's financial situation?
No, I don't think they should. I think they should look at it, as I talked about in the beginning, when you can build a list and look at it from a broad perspective and have an affordable college list. But there's so many factors that'll go into the type of aid that a college will give to a student. I don't think looking at just that sticker price and saying, oh, I'm going to discount it because it's way too much is the way to go. I think you have to look at it from a holistic perspective. And if a student has that dream of going to the University of Chicago, and University of Chicago is like $70,000 a year, and they have the profile to be competitive, then they should go for it and not discount that just because of their family finances. Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
And the other thing too is to look at it as an opportunity to go after those private scholarships as well. It may be the opportunity for a student to say, look, I really have that dream of going to University of Chicago or whatever school, and the way to get there would be to take the initiative and to go after private scholarships. Okay.
Right. So essentially what we are saying is that a student should dream as far as their dreams can take them, and as long as they're willing to work for it, they should not, at least for high-end private colleges, which have the endowments and the financial wherewithal to help students, at least for those colleges, the students should not be worried about, students and families should not be worried about their ability to pay. What they should focus on is doing their best to maximize chances of getting in.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Spot on.
So, yeah, go ahead, Monica.
Oh, no, go ahead. You can answer. Yeah.
So University of Chicago, you almost kind of read my mind. So my son actually goes there. And I was, a lot of the points that you made actually resonated with me because you talked about merit aid.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about how merit aid for high-end colleges is generally need-based.
Mm-hmm.
So that's true in my case. So several years back, when I left my corporate job to start UC Easy, every new business requires savings to be channeled and all that stuff. And I went to them and I shared with them that situation. So they offered merit aid and they offered a generous financial aid package. So I think so related to pretty much everything that you said. So that's my life story as well.
Good.
Okay, so with that, I'll have more questions for the audience, but why don't you start answering some of these questions in the Q&A panel?
So one person is asking, do you have to pay to fill out the CSS profile? And yes, you do. I cannot remember for the life of me how much. I think it's maybe between $16 and $25 a school, but they do require that you have to pay to fill that out and to submit it, rather. You can fill it out and then submit it. And then the other question is, why do they require it if they already have the FAFSA? Well, the thinking is, the reason why some schools require both, and a lot of the highly selective schools require both, is because the CSS profile gives the schools it's a lot more in depth in terms of your finances. I mean, they really ask you a lot of questions, and schools that use that, they're usually the highly selective schools. They will use that information to kind of come up with their own little methodology in determining how they will award and how they will package schools, your student, rather. So that's why it's a lot more in depth than the FAFSA. Okay. We have a question about student loans, private loans. Oh my goodness. In general, student loans, I always recommend every family should fill out the FAFSA at least. And from that, it will determine whether or not you will receive subsidized loans, which means if you need need-based loans. Subsidized loans means while you're in school, while your teen's in school, the federal government will pay the interest that accrues on that loan while you're in school if you have a subsidized loan. Or if you have an unsubsidized loan, it means that they will not, because that means your loan is not need-based. But I always remind students and suggest that all students fill that out, because it just opens up an opportunity for either subsidized or unsubsidized loans. Private loans are just that. They're private. Different banks will give families loans. But like I said, I always recommend going first to the federal government for loans, because the terms are a lot better and the interest rates will be better for you as well. There's a question about how much aid can be expected and how aid is calculated. Once again, that's because of the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So there's a federal methodology for calculating and an institutional methodology, which is used by the profile. So all of it's going to depend on your income, your assets, how they take that into consideration. They really dive in and look at your financial situation, and they use all of that information to calculate your expected family contribution.
Monica?
Yes.
So I have another, before we get onto these questions, I also have another bigger picture question. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually intentionally asking this to guide our audience. The vast majority of those look like they're first-generation immigrants. Uh-huh. As I mentioned before, I'm a first-generation immigrant myself, and I came from India to US. We had this societal stigma against taking loans of whatever kind. Yeah. A lot of that changed when we started taking loans here for the homes. Mm-hmm. And for cars, etc. But a lot of families still our DNA is not conducive to taking student loans. It's almost blasphemous.
Mhm.
So can you educate our audience about the current status of student loans in this country? And just to help this conversation, things like, so if you can provide a little bit more editorial commentary to things like 90% of US college student takes loans, and our national combined college loan debt is 1.3 trillion, et cetera. Can you just provide a commentary? And I'm hoping that you can provide some perspective to the audience about that. Hey, don't slow down your college dreams because of loans. It's okay to do that. That's what
Yeah.
I'm hoping you would say. But if you want to challenge me, that's fine too.
No, that's a good question, because I think in many communities, taking out loans is seen as, it's seen as is not a good thing, right? But the way I like to approach this whole idea of loans is to, you can go on any college website now and you can kind of get an idea as to what the average loan that a student who graduates from there, how much debt they will have. And I would definitely keep track of that. Obviously, one thing to do, and this is something that I recommend to families, if your son or daughter is going to be, look at it in terms of the maximum amount of loan that your teen will take out based on what their career goals are, okay? So if they're going to be an engineer, taking out, say, 30,000 in loans may not be a bad idea, okay, if it's an investment, and look at it over, a 10, 15-year period, right? May not be, if you feel comfortable with that. Now, if you're going to major in art history, that's something different, okay? But you can certainly go on any website and they will give you information about a college website. They'll give you information about what the average debt will be, and to look at it from that perspective. All right. And think about it as an investment. The one reason why I always say look at being able to look at a 4-year period and think about, how much you may have to take out in loans, because pretty much, unfortunately, loans pretty much are a given to finance one's education these days. But looking at it from a 4-year perspective and being able to be comfortable with, say, being 25 to 30,000 in debt after you graduate. All right. I think that we hear a lot about, the amount of loans that students take out, and it looks to be like a lot. It is a lot. But at times, I think the media really focuses on graduate school loans. So, if you're going on to medical school or law school, they throw that in the mix as well. But you can go online for whatever college you're looking at and look at it from the perspective of an undergraduate. When they graduate, what's the average debt? Okay. So that's what I would recommend doing.
I appreciate that, Monica. Thanks. Yeah, if you can just take one question, then we'll take a quick segue into how to work with UC Easy in case there are people on this audience that would want to get your help on a private basis. And
Sure.
Then we'll come back and take more questions.
Yeah, one of the questions is, when should you start searching for private scholarships? What's a good time to start doing that? I always recommend junior year is a good time to start. It takes some time to write, to answer applications, to do essays, to submit them. So junior year really is a good time to working on private scholarships. Okay.
Okay. So let's do this. Let me bring up my slide deck.
Okay. You want me to stop sharing here? Stop sharing. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Just 1 second. I'm going to rush through this. And so just 1 second. Almost there. Okay. So remember in the beginning of the conversation today, we talked about how we have lots of free tools, including this webinar, to help you. There are some families, maybe on this call today, on this webinar, that would say that, hey, listen, we need more personal help from someone like Dr. Monica Randall, and we can afford it. If you can't, that's fine. We love to see you on these webinars. We would love to see you use our free tools and to tell other families. But if you can, if you need extra help and if you can afford it, then let me talk about how would you engage with us. The simplest always is to send us an email or call, and we can set a discussion. Let's talk about what are some of the financial aid services that Dr. Monica Randall and other financial aid experts on the team that we have. Monica, do you want to talk through this slide first?
Sure. The first service is, as I mentioned before, being able to assist you with developing an affordable college list. And that service is best for juniors, current high school juniors. And that would be looking at your specific financial situation and assisting you with coming up with a well-balanced list. Not only well-balanced from your academic profile, but also from a financial standpoint as well. For seniors, there are 3 services that are available. One is guidance in terms of completing your financial aid application. So it could be the CSS profile or the FAFSA. The other is negotiating financial aid offers. So this time of year, seniors are getting financial aid awards and financial aid offers from multiple schools, and being able to look at what the best options are based on what is provided to you from the school. And then, of course, comparing financial aid awards too. Once again, being able to provide the best options and potentially negotiating with financial aid officers based on the offers that you've received from multiple schools. So those are the services that we could provide.
So just to add to what Dr. Randall said, the first is that we constantly come across, especially here in Silicon Valley, a lot of families that are recent immigrants from India and China, for example. And they're unsure about, especially if they recently moved and the child is already in high school, then they're unsure about what the cost of attending a college would be based upon their visa status, H1 or L1, any of those things. So we actually have the ability to give you specific guidance for your specific situation. On the last point here, negotiating financial aid offers, I do remember an instance with one of our experts actually last year where a particular university had offered $5,000 to them, and they worked with a UC Easy expert who coached them on how to counter that offer, and they actually came back with $28,000. So that's a real story. So the point I'm trying to make, again, with the perspective of first-generation immigrant families, is that this financial aid stuff is real. And again, I say that because where we came from, or where I came from, a lot of this stuff was just vaporware or dreams and not real. This stuff is real, and I can vouch for the efficiency of these financial aid systems with respect to my own son. This financial aid stuff is not a hoax. Okay, so we're going to talk about how would you work with UC Easy. So the best thing in most cases, either for financial aid or our experts like Monica Randall can help with every single aspect of college admissions, starting from 8th grade. So financial aid is just one aspect. The best might be that you can go to our site, union.uceasy.com. From there, you choose a counselor, hopefully Dr. Randall, if you like her, from today, and start with 1 hour consultation with her. And then after that, you contact us here, and then we will work with you to figure out what the longer-term engagement model looks like. Now, just as a reward for people that took their Sunday afternoon off to attend this webinar to help their children, we're going to offer you a $50 discount if you order this first hour by tomorrow night. I realize that for most families, this is not a big deal. It's just one of those sweet things that we wanted to do. This is the last slide before we go back to, or the last major slide before we go back to Monica for more questions. For outside financial aid discussion, since we have families on this call from as early as 8th grade, these are some of the things that if you choose to engage, say, Dr. Randall to help your 8th and 9th grader, these are the different things that she will help you with. In 10th grade, we will do all of these, but we would add testing strategy, SAT, ACT, subject test. And in 11th, just a bunch of things get added up, including things like college list and majors, how to prepare resumes. This list, by the way, is available on the site I talked about, union.uceasy.com. And again, if you don't remember any of this, just email us. We'll be happy to speak with you. Please do continue attending these events. For the juniors on this call, next Sunday, same time, we have a webinar where we're going to talk about the college applications roadmap for juniors for this year. So highly recommended, and please try to bring your junior with you to the webinar. Today's webinar and similar events, the recordings are available for free as a part of our giving back to the community. And please let families, especially underprivileged families, know about such excellent resources that don't cost them a dime. Lastly, for those of you who work for corporations, if you think that there is value in UC Easy coming over to your site and talking to a bunch of your coworkers, then please let us know, and we'll be happy to do that, again, for no cost to you or to your company or to your coworkers. Okay, and lastly, we have launched a feedback poll. Please fill that, and we would appreciate, because that's how we know whether these events make sense for you and how we can improve on these events. So with that, Monica, let's take a few more questions, and thank you for your patience.
Sure. Sure. One question is when to start saving for college, which is always a good thing. The best time, of course, the earlier the better. You know, if you have an 8th grader and you can, you know, start putting away money into a 529, now is a good time to do that when they're in 8th grade. So, you know, middle school years really is the more ideal time, even earlier than that if you can, but middle school years as well. Okay.
I would, Monica, if I can add, I would personally vouch for those 529 plans. I use that for both my kids. They are an amazing way for your college savings to grow tax-free, as long as you don't speculate too much with that money.
Oh, okay.
So if any of you want my personal life stories about using 529 efficiently, I'll be happy to do that completely free of cost, as just from one parent to another. But those are excellent tools that you should use. 529 plans. Go ahead, Monica.
Oh, yeah. And the last question deals with fee waivers for the CSS profile. You can go on the College Board website. There are fee waivers. I think there are some requirements in order to get those fees waived. And you will probably have to work with your high school guidance counselor in terms of filling out forms so that you can get those fees waived. But there is that opportunity to get your fees waived for the CSS profile if needed. Okay.
Okay, and last one.
The last question is, someone wanted to know if there was an income limit to get scholarships. Scholarships are normally based on merit. So if you're talking about private scholarships, they're not, you know, there's no income limit on those. There are other criteria that you'd have to meet in order to get private scholarships. So it's, you know, scholarships by its very nature is much more based on merit and not based on need at all. So there's no income limit there. Okay.
Okay, awesome, Monica. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for
my pleasure.
For offering such excellent advice to me. There's a lot of stuff that I learned as well, and so thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you for. I do want to applaud you for taking time on a Sunday afternoon when the temptation to watch TV or to just chill is so high. So thank you for doing this for your children. I'm sure at some point, maybe 20 years from now, they will say thank you. Please consider liking our Facebook page if you see value in what UC-EC is doing. And we hope to see you at our webinars in future and even our seminars. Monica, do you want to say anything in closing?
I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule, because it's great to have this many people on a Sunday afternoon. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have a great week and hope to see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.